Hello. So I'm going to open up this video with a couple of questions. And the first one is, do you ever feel the pressure of having to live up to the expectations of others? Or do you ever feel the weight of a reputation that you feel you have to live up to? Or even a reputation that you feel you have to prove wrong? Well, I'm going to be speaking about a couple of verses from Haggai chapter 2, verses 21 to 22. And it is based off of a sermon that my pastor preached at church this week. And I just thought it was something that really stood out to me and something that is quite an important thing to consider. So an example of this feeling might be, so let's say you're performing a speech and everybody else has gone up and has performed speeches before you, and the person who went before you was just amazing. They were brilliant, perfect in your mind in every single way, and they got this massive round of applause for their speech afterwards. And you think, gee, how am I going to follow up from that? That was amazing. I have this super high expectation now that falls upon me. Or, for example, let's say that your dad or mum owns a family business, and their expectation for you is that you're going to eventually take over the family business and run it when they can't run it any longer. But you might have a different direction for your life. You might have a passion elsewhere, and you might have a different avenue that you want to go down. But you feel this pressure to be a part of this family business because that's what they want for you, and that's what they've always done. So, and another example maybe is your upbringing. For example, you might have experienced abuse, you might have experienced neglect or a lack of support from your family growing up, and you feel the pressure to not do the same for your future family, or you feel the pressure to not let this impact the way that you behave or respond in everyday situations. So, one key thing to remember about reputation is that our reputation is formed based on our character, not the external factors, not the character of the people around us that, yes, they might have helped shape us and shape who we are, but they do not form our reputation. That's for us to do ourselves. Now, if we go to Haggai chapter 2, verse 21 to 22, I'm not going to go through it or necessarily explain the story. If you want to check it out, feel free to do that. There's also a couple of verses in Jeremiah that help explain a couple of things. But essentially, there was this man named Zerubbabul, and he came from a long line of descendants and was a descendant of David, who was obviously a very famous king and well known for being a very faithful servant of God. But then you go further down the line, and the kings following David, there was 3 or 4 kings in a row that were evil rulers, had a terrible reputation for the way they ruled the land. And Zerubbabel had this big weight on his shoulders. He thought, well, on the one hand, he had David, his expectations that he had to live up to, this amazing king, this amazing ruler who was well regarded, and then these other kings who were considered evil and terrible rulers. So he had the weight of both of those things on his shoulders, these expectations and this reputation fallen upon him from the view of outsiders. And these rulers before him, they were so terrible, their reputations were so bad that God said that none of their descendants would ever rule again, because their relationship had been completely broken with God. So we fast forward to Zerubbabel, and he gets put in a position of power, a position where he has been chosen to rule. Now imagine the way he is feeling. He would feel this huge weight on his shoulders, this reputation from the people that came before him would be weighing in on him. The people around him would be thinking, oh, okay, these kings prior to him, we've had a history of 3 or 4 kings in a row who have been absolutely terrible. Chances are Zerubbabul is going to be terrible too. On the other hand, there would probably be, from some people, these great expectations that he could be the next King David. So this pressure on Zerubbabel would have been immense. But he was elected to lead, and that was because people trusted in him. And he was having these doubts, and God spoke to him and made these 3 promises. The first one, he said, I am God. Now we've got to trust in God, because he is God. He is the creator of all things. He is all-powerful. And the second promise is that he said, I control who will rule. I'm the one that controls which kings are put into power. I'm the one who controls who will lead. So you need to trust me in that, because I am putting you in this position of power. And then he promised that I'm more powerful than any worldly weapon. So he says, no matter what challenge is thrown at you, in terms of the weapons that you might come against, the armies that you might come against, I'm God. I can overthrow any of those things without any effort whatsoever. And then he said, I have chosen you, Zerubbabel. He said, forget about all of those things that happened in the past. He said, forget about the past. I know the kings in the past did a terrible job at ruling, and I said they'll never rule again, or any of their descendants. But you have shown me that our relationship has been restored, and I'm willing to let you rule because you are. So a couple of things that my pastor said to round out this message. He said, living in the shadows makes us more dependent on God and more humble. Now, as much as it's not necessarily a good thing to be facing this pressure of having this reputation formed around us, but it makes us more dependent on God and makes us more humble. It makes us think about the decisions we make and how we can change to shape our own reputation. And then he also rounded it off with this final word. He said, failure in the Christian life is not an end, but it is an opportunity to start again when we give it over to God. And I just thought that that was a really strong summary of what it means to be trusting in God, in that no matter what failures we take, we're going to fail, and we're going to fail again. We're going to fail lots of times. But the point is that we pick ourselves up, we learn from it, and we give it over to God, and we try again, or try something different. And that is the beauty of God's love, is that he accepts us when we fail, and he gives us more opportunities to learn and to grow.